The rain struck the stone street outside Alexander Thornfield's townhouse like a quiet judgment. It washed over the city in long, steady sheets, turning the night cold and heavy. Inside the tall house on the edge of fashionable society, the fire was nearly dead. Its last flames moved slowly, as if they were too tired to keep fighting the dark. Alexander stood alone near the hearth, a glass of brandy untouched in his hand. The firelight showed a face shaped by wealth and duty rather than joy. His jaw was strong. His eyes were dark, like a storm waiting to break. His mouth had forgotten how to smile in a real way. At 30 years old, he owned land, houses, and influence that most men could never dream of. Yet none of it kept him warm. "You cannot truly mean to do this," said Percival Hale, his oldest friend. Yet Percival stood a few steps away, careful not to cross an invisible line. He had learned long ago when to speak and when to wait. To dress as a servant and spy on your own fiancée. If anyone finds out, it will ruin you. "They will not find out," Alexander said. His voice was calm and firm, leaving no space for argument. He set the glass down with care and turned to face Percival. "My father arranged this match on his deathbed. He made a promise to Baron Whitmore, and I will not break it without knowing the truth. I will not bind my life to a woman who sees me only as a title and a fortune." Percival sighed. "You are judging her before you know her. Rachel Whitmore may not be what people say." Alexander let out a short laugh with no humor. "People say she pushed her dying father to secure this match. Yeah, that she counts the days until she can wear a better name and better jewels. Society has already decided who she is." He turned to the window, watching the rain blur the city lights. "I need to see her when she is not performing, when no one important is watching. Only then will I know whether this marriage will be a duty or a mistake." Once spoken, the plan could not be undone. 3 days later, Alexander Thornfield disappeared. In his place arrived a man named Thomas Gray. His clothes were plain and worn. His hands were marked to look rough from work. His posture was lowered, his eyes trained to look away rather than command attention. He carried papers that showed him as nothing more than a man seeking honest work. Whitmore Manor stood several hours from the city, old and proud, but slowly falling into neglect. The ivy climbed its stone walls, and the gardens had grown wild where careful hands once tended them. It was a house that remembered better days. Thomas Gray arrived on foot just before evening. Mrs. Brennan, the housekeeper, looked him over with sharp eyes that missed very little. "You have come far for work," she said. "Why here?" "I want steady work in a fair house," he replied. "I was told this family treats its servants well." Something like surprise crossed her face. She nodded once and hired him before nightfall. Within hours, Alexander learned how quickly a man could become invisible. Servants moved through halls without notice. Words spoken around them were unguarded. Truth slipped free when people believed no one important was listening. He saw Rachel Whitmore for the first time through a half-open door. Yet she sat alone in the morning room, sunlight falling softly around her. She was repairing a torn book with careful fingers, as if it mattered deeply to her. Her dress was simple and faded blue, altered many times. Her beauty was quiet. It did not demand attention. There was sadness in her face, but also patience. Then a sharp voice cut through the room. "Rachel, wasting time again!" Lady Constance Whitmore entered with force, her silk dress bright and heavy with expense. 2 young women followed her, laughing softly. Rachel rose at once, holding the book close. "The Duke may visit soon," Lady Constance said. "We must prepare you, though I cannot imagine why he would choose you." Rachel lowered her eyes. "I will try not to disappoint." That night, Thomas followed a soft light into the garden. Under a large tree, Rachel knelt alone. She was crying quietly, her shoulders shaking. "I wish he could love me," she whispered into the dark. "But how could he? I cannot even love myself." The words struck Alexander harder than any insult. He stood frozen, unseen, as her pain settled into him. The days that followed showed him a truth he had not expected. Rachel worked harder than anyone in the house. She rose early and slept late. She mended clothes, tended the garden, and cared for others without thanks. She read aloud to Mrs. Brennan when the woman's eyes grew tired. She saved small kindnesses for those who noticed her least. This was no scheming woman. This was a soul shaped by quiet endurance. He began leaving small gifts where she would find them. A book, a ribbon, fresh flowers. He told himself it was observation. He did not yet admit it was love. When then the letter arrived, Lady Constance read it aloud with delight. The Duke's mother demanded Rachel come to the city for inspection. The word was spoken like a sentence, not an invitation. Rachel accepted the news without protest. Her face was pale, but she did not argue. Later that day, Thomas brought tea to her room. She sat sewing her only fine dress, tears slipping down her cheeks in silence. "I am nothing," she said softly. "Poor and plain. You are everything," he replied without thinking. Their eyes met. Something passed between them that could not be taken back. Then the door opened. Lady Constance stood watching them closely. Thomas left the house that very night, and as the city lights welcomed Alexander Thornfield home once more, he knew the truth had already destroyed him. Yet London greeted Alexander Thornfield with all the cold formality it always had. The tall townhouse stood exactly as he had left it, grand and silent, filled with reminders of duty rather than comfort. Yet Alexander was no longer the same man who had walked out weeks earlier. The rooms felt smaller now, the portraits of his ancestors heavy with judgment. He had returned as a duke, but his heart had been left behind in a quiet country manor with a woman who believed herself unworthy of love. Percival arrived the next morning, drawn by the urgency in Alexander's message. One look at his friend's face told him something had shifted beyond repair. "You found what you were looking for," Percival said carefully. "Yes," Alexander replied, "and it has ruined me." He told Percival everything: the disguise, the garden, the tears, and the gifts left in secret. The moment Rachel had looked at him and asked who he truly was. When he finished, the room was silent. "You love her," Percival said. Alexander did not deny it. "She believes she is nothing. That belief has been taught to her every day of her life. I watched it happen. And now I must face what I have done to her." Plans moved quickly after that. Alexander ordered preparations for the grandest ball the season had seen. Invitations were sent to every powerful family in London. One invitation, written with particular care, was addressed to Miss Rachel Whitmore. At Whitmore Manor, the letter arrived like a thunderclap. Lady Constance read it aloud with forced sweetness. A personal invitation from the Duke himself. Rachel stood very still as the words sank in. Her hands trembled. "They will laugh at you," Lady Constance said later, when they were alone. "They will inspect you like a curiosity. Do not embarrass us." Rachel nodded, though her stomach twisted with fear. That night, she sat on her bed, holding the invitation, unsure whether it was a promise or a threat. She thought of Thomas, of his kindness, of the way he had looked at her as if she mattered. In London, the night of the ball arrived beneath a clear sky scattered with stars. The ballroom glowed with light and wealth. Music filled the air as guests arrived dressed in their finest silks and jewels. Whispers followed every entrance. Alexander stood at the top of the stairs, watching. He felt no excitement, only a sharp focus. This night would decide everything. When Rachel's name was announced, the room fell into a tense silence. She entered alone, wearing a gown of faded green silk that had clearly been altered many times. She wore no jewels, only a simple ribbon in her hair. Her back was straight, though fear showed in her eyes. The whispers began at once. Alexander moved. He descended the stairs, ignoring every greeting, every stare. He stopped in front of Rachel, close enough to see her confusion turn into recognition. "Thomas," she whispered. "Rachel," he said softly. "There is something I must say." The music stopped. Every eye turned toward them. "I deceived you," Alexander said clearly. "I came to your home disguised as a servant. I wanted to judge your character without pretense." Gasps rippled through the room. Rachel's face drained of color. "You heard me," she said. "You saw me." "Yes," he replied, "and I fell in love with you." He took her hands, uncaring of the shock around them. "I saw your kindness when no one praised you. I heard your pain when you believed yourself alone. I discovered a woman of strength and grace that no title could ever match." Tears streamed down Rachel's face. "I am poor," she said. "I have nothing." "You have everything that matters," Alexander answered. "And I ask you now, not as a duke, but as a man, will you choose me?" The room held its breath. Rachel lifted her head. "You saw me when I thought I was invisible," she said. "How could I not choose you?" Alexander drew her into the dance as the music resumed, slow and steady. Around them, society watched in stunned silence as something ancient and powerful rewrote the rules they had lived by. And for the first time in his life, Alexander Thornfield felt free. The ballroom did not recover quickly from what it had witnessed. Long after the first dance ended, guests remained rooted to their places, pretending to sip champagne, while their carefully ordered beliefs cracked beneath their polite smiles. Alexander led Rachel through the crowd, with a steady hand at her back, shielding her from whispers that no longer mattered. For the first time in her life, she was not standing alone. Lady Constance watched from across the room, her face stiff with disbelief. Whilst this was not how the night was meant to unfold, this was not the quiet humiliation she had expected for her stepdaughter. Instead, Rachel had been lifted to the center of the world by the very man meant to judge her. Alexander's mother stood near the far wall, pale and still. The Duchess of Ashford had ruled her son's life with calm authority for decades. Tonight, she found that authority slipping through her fingers. When the dance ended, Alexander did not release Rachel at once. He leaned close, his voice meant only for her. "You do not have to stay," he said. "If this is too much, I will take you home." Rachel shook her head. Her hands still trembled, but her eyes were clear. "I have spent my life enduring things in silence. Tonight, I will not run." Her courage filled him with quiet awe. The Duchess approached them then, her expression carefully controlled. The guests leaned closer, sensing confrontation. "Alexander," she said, "may I speak with you? Alone." He met her gaze without flinching. "Anything you wish to say to me, Mother, you may say before Miss Whitmore." Rachel stiffened, but Alexander's hand tightened reassuringly around hers. The Duchess studied Rachel with open scrutiny. "You have caused quite a disturbance." Rachel inclined her head. "I did not intend to, Your Grace." "No," the Duchess replied coolly. "You did not. My son did." Alexander stepped forward. "This ends now. I will not allow you or anyone else to diminish her." The Duchess's lips pressed thin. You would discard generations of careful alliances for a woman with no fortune, no polish, and no standing. I would, Alexander said, because she has character. Well, because she has kindness. Because she endured cruelty without becoming cruel herself. Silence stretched between them. At last, the Duchess exhaled. If you proceed with this marriage, society will not be forgiving. Alexander smiled faintly. Then society will have to learn. The Duchess looked again at Rachel, really looked this time. Perhaps she saw the fear still present, but also the strength holding it in check. Perhaps she recognized something she herself had lost long ago. We shall see, she said at last, and turned away. The weeks that followed were not easy. London spoke of little else. Some praised the romance. Others mocked it. Invitations vanished. Doors quietly closed. Yet others opened with unexpected warmth. People drawn to honesty found their way closer, while the shallow slipped away. Rachel moved into Alexander's townhouse under a cloud of nerves. Every room felt too grand. Every mirror too honest. She struggled with the idea that she belonged there at all. Alexander noticed everything. He made space for her without pressure. He filled rooms with flowers she loved. He asked her opinion on small things and listened as if it mattered greatly. Slowly, the house softened around her. One afternoon, he found her standing before a portrait of a former duchess, a woman stiff with pearls and pride. She looks so certain, Rachel said quietly. She looks lonely, Alexander replied. Rachel turned to him. I am afraid I will disappoint you. He took her hands. You already know my worst. You already chose me anyway. There is nothing you could do that would make me regret that. Her eyes filled, but this time with relief rather than pain. The wedding was small by ducal standards. Some powerful families stayed away in protest. Others came out of curiosity. Rachel wore a simple gown, carefully made, with flowers woven through her hair. When she walked toward Alexander, there was no doubt in her step. Percival watched from the side, smiling openly. Mrs. Brennan attended, eyes shining with pride. Even Lady Constance was present, stiff and silent, as if unsure whether to resent or admire the outcome. When Alexander spoke his vows, his voice did not waver. When Rachel spoke hers, the room seemed to breathe with her. They were married not as a victory, but as a promise. Life after marriage required adjustment. Rachel learned to move through society without shrinking. Alexander learned to loosen his grip on control. As they argued at times, they laughed often. Love grew not as a dramatic force, but as something steady and enduring. One evening, months later, Alexander found Rachel in the garden of their country estate. She knelt beside a rose bush, hands in the soil, humming softly. You always return to gardens, he said. She smiled. They remind me that neglected things can still bloom. He knelt beside her. You taught me that. Rachel leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder. You taught me I was worth seeing. The sun dipped low, casting warm light over the roses now heavy with color. The world beyond their walls continued to judge and measure and divide. But within that quiet space, none of it mattered. Alexander Thornfield had set out to expose a lie. Instead, he found the truth, and it changed everything.